So about a year ago, I made a video where I said shooting in manual is overrated. And since then, I've almost exclusively been shooting in aperture priority. Not just in photo, but video as well. So now that it's been a while, I want to share some of my thoughts and notes that I've taken and see if those photographers that say you're not a real photographer unless you're shooting in manual are correct. So before you jump the gun and leave a comment, I would like to clarify that there will always be specific lighting conditions where you will want to shoot in manual, especially in controlled studio environments. If you're shooting any kind of long exposure landscape photography, there are always times to shoot in manual. But before we dive in, I would like to talk to you about the sponsor of this video, which is Skillshare. Let's say you don't know how to shoot in manual yet, but you want to learn. Or you're already an established photographer and you're interested in learning video, or expanding your business or brand, but don't know where to start. Skillshare is a great platform of classes on anything and everything that you could possibly need to help take your photography to the next level. That includes photography itself, graphic design, art and illustration, video production, audio, and marketing and business. The first 500 people to use the link in the description or scan the QR code here on the screen will get 1 free month of Skillshare plus 20% off of your first year, so get started today. Skillshare has classes taught by amazing world-class creatives and professionals, and the platform is designed to help you build creativity into your life by learning directly from real, super talented, and successful creatives. You may find a lot of familiar faces that you've watched here on YouTube. I'm sure many of you know Sean Dalton. He has great classes, and one I specifically enjoyed is his class on finding your photography style. No matter how experienced you are, it's a great reminder to always be practicing and refining your craft. And I've learned a lot that I can apply to my photography in the future. So scan the QR code and get started today. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Here are 2 photos. Can you guess which one was shot in aperture priority and which one was shot in manual? The correct answer is it doesn't matter, because the end result was exactly as it was intended to be in both photos. I feel like some photographers are reluctant to give their camera not even full control, but just partial control, and that usually ends up working against them. The reason I switched to shooting in aperture priority is because I was simply missing too many shots because I was busy changing and adjusting my settings. And trust me, I've used this camera enough. I can adjust and change any setting on this camera pretty quickly, but milliseconds can make or break the photo. So what initially started as me just using aperture priority for shooting street photography quickly turned into me using it pretty much all of the time. I'd been shooting in manual mode so much over the years that it was kind of nice to simply forget about the settings side and just focus on the compositional side of my photography. And I definitely think it helped me improve that area in a lot of ways. It allowed my brain to shift focus to the result rather than the process, which I think definitely helped me improve my compositions and my photography in general in most ways. But I think I quickly realized that something was missing. Because isn't half the reason I and so many others fell in love with photography in the first place was because of the process? People love shooting film because it helps you slow down and be a little bit more methodical with your photography. Shooting in aperture priority allows you to spray and pray and just take as many photos as you possibly can, as much space as you have on your SD card. And it kind of just starts to feel like taking photos with your phone. So shooting in aperture priority kind of just feels like you're taking photos on easy mode. And for that reason, I think there's a time and place for it. Like I said, I've been shooting in aperture priority almost exclusively this year, which is fine. There's always going to be times and places where I need to shoot in manual because it's kind of a necessity. But I think I'm going to divide my time up a little bit more evenly between shooting in aperture priority and manual, because there's times and places where you don't need to take the photo as fast as you possibly can, especially when the light is not just constantly changing. Now, the other thing I noticed, which is probably even more subjective than the previous one, is that I feel like my photography became more boring. And I'm not talking about the process. All of my photos just became perfectly exposed to whatever my camera deemed to be the perfect balance between the highlights and the shadows. There have been many times where I thought underexposing or overexposing the photo would actually benefit it, but I just thought, I'll fix it in post. Now, thankfully with a camera like the Sony a7CR, being a couple stops over or underexposed is not really an issue because the dynamic range is so impressive on this camera. Because there will always be times where you want your photo to be over or underexposed. You don't always need to have that perfect exposure according to what your camera says, because oftentimes you can overexpose by at least 1 or 2 shots and still maintain all of that highlight information without it even being blown out in the first place and you having to drag it back down in Lightroom. And there are going to be times where you want it to be extremely underexposed because you want to silhouette something in your shot. But when you're shooting an aperture priority, your camera is kind of fighting against you in that regard a lot of the time. So the process of shooting photos with the camera became so similar to taking photos with my iPhone, except with a very different result. So for me, I had to figure out if the reason I love photography so much is because of the outcome or the process. And I know there is so much more to the process of taking photos beyond just changing your settings. Some of my most fond memories as a photographer and going out and taking photos are, like those early mornings where you wake up in the middle of the night to drive somewhere a couple hours away to get there for sunrise to take photos. That will always be my favorite part of the process, but it's obviously not part of the process every single time. But what is the camera in your hand, and you get to decide how you want to use it. So my final answer to you're not a real photographer unless you shoot in manual, and the last thing I would like to note, and I would like to hear from you guys as well on this, is if you went back and watched all of my photo walk videos from this past year, would you have been able to tell or guess that I was shooting an aperture priority pretty much in every single video? And the answer is probably not. So I think the opinion that every photographer should always shoot in manual is quite jaded and kind of pretentious. And after a year of not shooting in manual, I've come to the conclusion that maturing as a photographer is not about shooting in manual all the time, but knowing when is the right and wrong time to shoot in manual. There's a time and place for both, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Ironically, I made a video a couple months ago that breaks down how to shoot in manual, makes it super simple, super easy for the beginner photographer to understand and digest. But I'm gonna end the video on that note. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to help support the channel. You can become a member of the channel to see videos just like this one early, and I hope I could inspire you guys to get out and take more photos. Go out and shoot.